significant pressure to get minutes for the planning.
Oh, that's right.
I guess fine.
Hello, Jonathan, we're without Paul tonight, right? So should
Yes,
sit-
I am Paul.
Yeah, and so should I sit closer to you, or do you want to sit where you normally sit?
I don't mind.
Well, you sit wherever you're comfortable.
Okay.
You were Paul, and I
It looks like there's a spot for him.
who gave the chip?
You're in a good mood today, good for you. That's nice.
Just wait.
Oh, okay.
That's right, I'll move the gavel over. I can bang it.
So used to setting up the same number.
Well, that should be for,
We could always shift these down. Do we need,
yeah, we can shut this one down. So everybody's got one.
And I gave myself a portable one down there, so you can all shift down to the right if you want. I don't know if, I'm not sure if these two will show. They haven't told me they weren't.
yeah.
AMS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually met with Deborah earlier today,
Okay.
and she told me that she's coming, but she's not sure how many teachers, because of course there's no school tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, they seem very organized. They told me.
To talk on an agenda item? Or
Yes.
on-
I think it,
On the
yeah, and about things that they're interested in and requests that they have. It's actually very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they just feel very crowded there, you know. You haven't had a child go through the middle school
No,
yet,
but
so,
I've
yeah.
heard the
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Definitely heard.
She actually asked me when we were going tonight this week, and they said that we're leaving the meeting and that they're going to get the staff presentation.
How did you manage?
Right, okay.
She just let me know. She thought there might be some parents too, but I don't know. Albany middle school parents.
Well, I think that's exactly what we need.
I agree.
I'm glad they know that.
I just wonder, I mean, you know, so many
Well, we're not
people-
making a decision tonight. Tonight's just a staff report on some options.
Excellent.
So, but I think the earlier and louder they are,
All right, this is
Yeah, I
on
mean, I
1
think-
minute, is that
yeah.
what we're gonna?
And we don't want to waste any time. I mean,
The
we
timer
move
is
along
on 1
Yeah,
minute,
yeah.
just press 3.
You can make it on three if you'd like to.
You wanna do this? You seem pretty skilled.
Chelsea's also very good with it. Yeah. And yeah, it's nice because it keeps her busy, I think. Gives her something to do. She likes it too, so. Well, I forgive them if they don't. I mean, it's their,
Well, I'm going to call to order the November 26th meeting of the Albany Unified School District Board of Education. May I have a roll call, please, Jackie?
Member Rosenbaum. Here. Member Barris.
Here,
Member Lowe.
here.
Vice President Vice President Knight.
Here. All right, and seeing no one here to comment on items in closed session, we'll go into closed session for about half an hour, expect to be back at 7.
go. Oh, doesn't reach.
Oh, did I sit in yours? Yeah, I did.
Apparently, I don't have any heat.
Yep. And is that yours? That's yours.
Yeah, it was nice.
I'm so glad. Okay.
Hi, are you guys gonna put anything good for the bill fundraising? I can do it. If you talk about it, I'll talk about it at the end. If you bring it up, we'll go into function. Go ahead and start.
All right, I'm going to call the November 26th session of the Board of Education's meeting to order. And may I have a roll call, please, Jackie?
Student Board Member Chen.
Here?
Student Board Member Lee.
Here.
Member Rosenbaum. Here. Member Maris.
Here.
Member Lowe.
Here.
Vice President Knight.
Here. And now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance for anyone who'd like to join us.
Ready to begin?
Okay, there was no action taken in closed session this evening. And so next we need to approve the agenda. Are there any questions on the agenda, proposed changes, or could I have a motion?
I'll move the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the next item is the consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar anyone would like to comment on or pull?
I'd like to comment on the minutes.
Minutes, okay.
I would as well.
Okay, 2 on the minutes. Anything else? Okay, Alan, why don't you go ahead?
Let's see, page 18 of the November 12th minutes. I fed these to Jackie, but I want the public to know as well. Board members requested additional information on how the needs of at-risk students were addressed after they were identified in their freshman year, and we did receive a response.
I'm sorry, Alan, which page are you on? 18?
It's on page 18 of the packet, at least that's what. I've got it on my notes.
I've got the staff report, facilities overview. Or
Staff or staff?
is it 18 of 21 in the minutes? 17, 18.
Yeah, you're right, it's not.
On page 18 of 21, is this the November 12th minutes you're looking at? Or the,
Yeah, so where are
okay.
you finding it?
Well, I don't know, on page 18 of 21, there's stuff about MacGregor campus, the Measure E Bond Fund.
Oh, let me look through it.
Okay.
I'm looking for the minutes.
18 of 21.
Do you know where it is?
Thank you.
It's on page 18 of the packet.
18 of the
Yeah, that's what I said.
Down.
Yeah.
It's right after the presentation. He asked for that additional language to be added in there, which I've already done.
After the presentation, so under B, staff report?
Right before we,
Right before B.
Thank you.
Okay. Could you read what's going to be added or what you propose to add for us one more time?
Well, Jackie already has it, but I just wanted us as a board to be aware as well.
Yeah.
Board members requested additional information on how the needs of at-risk students were addressed after they are identified in the freshman year.
Okay.
That's really not in the minutes, you're right.
Right, that's why I
It's
couldn't
in-
find
it's
it,
in the
because you're
presentation.
proposing,
But it is in the minutes part. I mean, that's what
Right.
it was presented.
right, it was presented and you want to add it. Okay, that sounds,
Then on page 25, that was during board comments at the end of that meeting. I reminded the board that review and approval of the AHS Build Lease program does not yet appear on a future agenda after it was approved for an agenda item in our October board meeting.
Right.
That didn't appear in the minutes either.
I remember that.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
So on those same minutes, on page 18, and I didn't get this, Jackie, which I apologize for. It says the board thanked the council staff for their hard work and et cetera, et cetera. And I would like to add some language which I can send to you about, I guess Board Member Rosenbaum mentioned that it's difficult for the councilors when there are so many part-time positions. So I'll put some language together. Okay. And then minutes of the 19th. Wrong place.
So I don't see the minutes
We don't have the minutes
of the
19th.
29th in
Yeah, the 29th.
the agenda either. I wanted to make some comments on those too, but I'm not sure.
We
There-
would send those separately.
So those were sent to you separately for the next board meeting, but we
Oh.
sent them to you early.
Oh, okay.
So they will be on the next agenda.
So we.
We're not approving.
You're
them.
not
Yeah.
approving them.
Or approving them, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
You just are ahead in your homework.
Okay.
Very often.
I just have one question about the consent calendar and how we've recently been including the assignment, the personnel assignment order in sort of in the middle of the agenda, and because it comes in the consent calendar. And I'm just wondering, we've done that a few times now. Is that, I don't know why we started doing it. I'm
Yeah.
curious about it. I have mixed feelings about doing it in the future.
Oh, why is that?
Because it breaks up the agenda and it's a little bit hard to find your place when you have several pages of personnel assignment order and then we get to the net.
I agree. I'd rather see it broken out as a separate.
Yeah, if it's possible to break it out.
Do you mean,
Is that-
The reason why I started adding it is because it was double work. Cynthia did all the work to produce this document. She would give it to me, I would retype the document, plus attach it.
Oh,
So whatever you want us to do. It doesn't-
I don't want to double your work, that's for sure. Can it be pasted at the very end of the agenda? Is that,
It can be, and
without giving you any extra work?
sure, whatever you like.
Because it's purely, it's no work for me to scroll a couple pages, it's just, so, as long as, if it, promise me it makes no more work for you, and I
Definitely.
would be happy to have it at the end, pasted at the end as opposed to in the middle. Okay, thank you. All right, any other things on the consent calendar? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar?
And that will be with the additions to pages 18 and 25 proposed by our two members.
Thank you.
second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Good. So that brings us to, here's where I'm scrolling. Uh, Exactly. Okay. Great.
Tell us
So,
what page you're on.
no, I'm good. So that brings us to our student member report.
Last Wednesday, November 20th, was Albany High School's annual Career Day, and on this day, over 20 adults in professions ranging from pastry chef to chemical engineer come speak to a class of mixed graded students. It was a really successful event, and usually Albany High students really love having the opportunity to explore possible professions. And next Friday and Saturday, on the 6th and 7th of December, will be the Albany High School Vocal Ensemble's annual Magical Delights fundraiser. And it's one of their biggest fundraisers of the year, and it's held in the Veterans Memorial Hall. And it is a night of music, of singing, and there's dancing, there's food, and there's also a lot of acting.
Speaking of fundraising, Albany High School's Build On Club is fundraising again in order to build a school in Nicaragua. Along with Gizmodo, Build-On is asking for old or broken phones from students and teachers, in which Build-On will receive a percentage of profit from Gizmodo for every phone donated. An estimate of about 1,000 phones will provide enough funds into raising this school.
Can I ask a question about that? I read that in the bulletin today or yesterday. So are you taking any kind of electronics that can be salvaged?
Yeah, that includes iPods, iPhones, even phones with cameras, any old phone.
They are also taking like laptops and old like PDA systems and just old electronics.
I was interested too, so I read the flyer, and they said they wipe all your data clean, and then they
Yeah.
recycle it, and I thought it sounded like a good program.
So then you can turn that in at Marin. I saw the Marin's bulletin, or at the high school.
At the community center, I believe, as well, and the senior center, too. There's a poster going around that shows all of that.
Yeah.
The other thing Build On is doing is a bake sale this weekend at Monterey Market on Wednesday, and then I think at 4th Street on Thursday and Friday. They do really well. They have some great cookies, so it's a good fundraiser.
I would be there with a trunk of stuff.
Great. Okay, thank you. And so the Madrigal Delights, just to jump back one, is the 6th and 7th of December, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I went last year, it was a lot of fun. So-
I
Did you
did
go to the
too.
one where
Yeah.
you can bring your children, the
Yeah,
matinee one?
with a matinee, we brought the kids.
And I know, it sounds lovely. It
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
great.
it's a lot of fun.
Great.
Great. All right, so that brings us to staff reports. We have a staff report on the portable classroom options for the MacGregor site.
Okay, well, let me just check on something here. Yeah. So, this evening, I want to talk to you about possibilities for MacGregor. And I have looked at a number of different ways that we can provide student housing next year. Remembering that the board has authorized demolition of the building this summer, you have some choices to make in terms of student housing. All student housing that we begin to think about now will need to be ordered and/or procured, all the services procured as soon as possible in order to make sure that there is housing available this next fall.
So then to follow up on that, even, this is not an action item
No.
on this agenda, but if you want to move as quickly as possible, you're hoping that after this discussion,
We will be bringing a discussion item back, an action item back on the 10th.
okay, thank you for the clarification.
Authorize the expenditures for these programs.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So, your most inexpensive option is to lease portables. And I am not talking about leasing portables like the portables that were installed at Cornell that have pitched roofs, they're set on cement foundations. What I'm talking about are portables that will look more like Tupelo at Marin, only a newer version, or the portables that we are leasing at Cornell over by the backstop. Those are all leased. The back end, the back 3 classrooms, okay? And this is a good example of what it will look like. And the interior, clean, spacious. Most of them will come with carpet. This one does not have carpet.
Are these all the standard 960 square foot?
960 square feet. We have a proposal from William Scott Portables that will give us the ability to lease 10. I'm just using the number 10, not as the be-all, end-all, but try to give us some sense of what 10 of everything would cost us.
So what can we get for 10?
You can get, you can
Capacity for,
You can get 10 portables, 10 960 square foot portables, looking like that, Alan, up here,
yeah.
okay?
Looking at, with 10, we're looking at approximately 300 students being housed.
Yes, or you look 5 periods a day times 30, 150 times 10, about 1,500 students
We could say
coming
about
through.
300 at a time.
Right.
And we have needs at the middle school, we have needs at the high school, would those satisfy those needs, or what needs are we satisfying?
Okay, we're not talking about the needs right now. We're going to talk about the needs after I finish this, okay? Right now, I'm trying to give you some sense of what things cost, okay? So for $3,600 a year, now that'll have to be budgeted in your annual general fund budget. That doesn't come out of any special pot of money. That's an ongoing cost. You have about 10 to 15 years of lifespan, and you will not have the ability to add a second story. So this is a very temporary solution. I did ask some questions, so you'll see this as a constant throughout the presentation. Is it LEEDs Platinum, or is it attainable? And the answer is no to that. You'll need to add a restroom, at least one restroom, to the site, and that should cost you about $3,000 a year.
Do you want to clarify what LEED Platinum means?
Sure. So one of the things that Albany, the city and the school district pride themselves in is that we are very conscious of sustainability. And as a matter of fact, our pool project qualified for LEEDs, and the Gen 7s that we purchased were LEEDs Gold. Okay? So this is just following along in our efforts to remain, to keep our carbon footprint low and to, be part of the sustainability movement that the city of Albany is so proud of and the district is proud of.
Thank you.
So on that campus, obviously, you're going to need restrooms, so you're going to add another $3,000 a year for the cost of restrooms. And you'll pay a sales tax. I threw 7.5% out there. It will be more than that by the time we lease. It'll be just current rates in the county and within the city. The soft costs. You need to have an architectural design and the layout of your utilities, even for the most inexpensive portables. And that is your architect's design and the and other soft costs, which include a negative declaration for environmental impact reports, those kinds of things. To deliver the 10 portables and to pick them up again, so you pay for both. Okay, at both ends, you'll need $50,000 up front and $50,000 in reserve for when you no longer need them. You can assume about $35,000 in inspections and fees because these have to be DSA approved when they're sited. And the installation, which means that they're set down, they're leveled, they have skirts placed around them and the utilities hooked up. And then the site work is the preparation that needs to be done to the site after the demolition. So you will have an approximate $400 and change one-time cost and almost $42,000 annually for the least expensive solution at MacGregor. You can make a more permanent solution, and that is to purchase used portables. This is one that's on Craigslist right now. I would certainly not purchase this particular portable, but it is an example. The interior of this portable, looking very much like the leased ones. And actually, the ones that are for sale are usually ones that have been leased in the past, and districts have no use for them. You can buy them for approximately $25,000. It's a one-time cost. Obviously, your lifespan is about the same as the leased option. You can't add a future story, and they're not LEED Platinum attainable. You'll still need restrooms, and to purchase a restroom, a used restroom, is about $30,000. Then you'll need to pay tax on that. There will be 15% soft costs, a little bit less because of the What did I take out of there? I took something out that was not as expensive. Anyhow, I can't remember right now why I took 5,000 out, but basically, it's a little bit less than soft costs. Delivery is less because it's only a one-time delivery. Your inspection and fees are about the same. Your installation is the same, and your site work is the same. So for about $700,000 one-time cost, you've got a solution that will last you 10 to 15 years with no annual expense.
Is there resale value?
Not by the time you finish with these. I would say not. Because we're looking at portables now that will be demolished at MacGregor because they have no,
After 10 years?
no lifespan left in them.
So there will be demolition cost then? Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There'll be
yes, when you're done, you will have to demolish them or find someone to take them away.
So that you say is neutral, maybe you get some thing out of the
I think you could
demolition
probably
and
get them to take it away for free and not charge them anything for the building itself.
So we'd avoid the demolition.
Right. So, now we can purchase new portables. And this is a typical new installation, William Scott, looking very much like the installation that you see at Marin and Ocean View, less the stucco siding. The interior of a new portable. And the cost. $80,000 is the bid that or the initial estimate we got from William Scott. So that's $800,000. You'll get 25 to 30 years of lifespan. You cannot add a second story, and of course not LEED Platinum attainable. Your restrooms, new restrooms will cost you $60,000 with applicable sales tax, et cetera. So for about $1,400,000, you can have double your lifespan of the purchase of used portables or leased portables. I would love to put Gen 7s on the site, and you're very well acquainted with those. They're currently at the high school. This is the interior of our own high school right now. Each portable is $176,000. You'll get 25 to 30 years. You cannot add a future second story unless you order them at the initial onset of 2 stories. You can't add to them later. I didn't look at that because it was so unattainable just looking at the single story that I didn't, yeah. I could get that for you though, Ron.
Because we get double the space for something that's probably not reasonable.
So these 10 portables pretty well load up the site, is that?
No, I'm just using 10, Alan, as an example.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to give you just an idea of what things cost.
But you do, you sense that they do fit on the Cornell side?
Oh, yes, they would absolutely fit, yes. 10 portables would easily fit at the site.
Okay.
So this is actually our most expensive option, and I think the most unaffordable option at $2,600,000. But once again, they are LEED Gold attainable, and we have experience with them at the high school, and they are very, a very good choice for a portable. Now, we've talked about Growth Point before, and I've included them as an option. These are the shipping containers that are repurposed for school use. They are DSA approved. This is the interior. We can currently purchase them for $95,000 per classroom. They have a 50-year lifespan or more. You can add a future story, a future second story, and just because of the construction of containers, shipping containers. They are LEED Platinum attainable. The restrooms are $60,000, and all, and the like. I'm bringing it all the way down to a total of $1,600,000. So those are your options.
It's a lot clearer right now than it was in the beginning.
Yes. So now let's talk a little bit about needs. what the needs are at that site. We know that we have needs at the middle school that are currently not being met. The school was designed for 600, and we currently have close to 900, and we've hovered around 900 plus or minus for the last 10 years. So they have serious needs that cannot be addressed other than taking the teacher's parking lot and demolishing, basically, or taking the parking lot away and putting portables there or at the MacGregor site. But they need space. The high school needs space. They need at least 3 more classrooms for their current enrollment, and those spaces are larger than the 960. We need a larger space for culinary and for any kind of career tech ed. We need that kind of space available. We also are very impacted in our music program, choir at the middle school and high school, and band at the middle school and high school are really short of space. We have MacGregor that needs to be addressed, the needs of MacGregor. And we will be presenting to you I think it's on not our next, I think it's on the 19th agenda or in early January, a recommendation again from staff for MacGregor. But no matter what you do, MacGregor needs to be housed either at the San Gabriel site or the high school site or some other site. And that is running, right now it has 1 class, but we know that 1 class with 17 students is obviously sized correctly, but it doesn't allow for any expansion for MacGregor. It doesn't allow for any viability or any kind of flexibility. So you know that you have tremendous needs. And whatever decision you're going to make, and I will come to you with a recommendation next week, and I'll give you plenty of time before the board meeting for you to hear what my recommendation will be. But I am going to encourage you to try to be as flexible with the use at the San Gabriel site. It is one of the few sites that you have that you will ever have. There's really no vacant property for you to purchase and no money to purchase right now. But the need is there. We can't allow MacGregor site to be fallow and not have any student housing on it. The needs are too great. So I know we have guests in the audience.
When do you expect a decision on this?
I expect you to make a decision on the 10th.
The 10th, okay.
So my question is, given all these needs, which I think the whole board, and I think everybody's aware of that, if we were to try to house every one of these needs, how much space do we need? That's the original question.
Right.
Well, we know at a minimum we need 3 spaces for high school. And if you really want to have MacGregor at that site, you're going to need 2 to 3 classrooms, an office for not only the principal, but for a secretary, and a place for security, a place to feed them. Okay, so you're really taking up the site right now. Then you have the middle school needs, and I am saying that at a minimum, the absolute bare minimum for the middle school would be 4 classrooms, but they would like to see more.
Yeah.
And they would also like to see some multi-purpose room or a larger space, which we had initially shown you that could also serve as a boardroom, but they're desperate for that flexibility as well. And I believe that they've shared some of their thoughts with at least one board member, and perhaps there would be someone that would like to speak to that. I know you've made this is the holidays are upon us and you're all here, so certainly I'd like for someone from the middle school to speak to this.
Yeah, I'd love to open it up.
Sure.
No, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
I'd like to open it up, but there are a couple
And
of
then ask
clarifying
additional
questions.
questions. Yeah.
I'm a broken record on this one. I still think that we have space at the high school for supportables on the asphalt. That's space, in my opinion, is not well used.
What asphalt?
Outside of where the new Gen 7s are?
Where the basketball courts are.
Oh, where the
Or
basketball-
beyond that towards the, whatever you want to call it.
Well, you see, that is a fire lane and cannot be, well, I have to, all right, so as we walk, half of that fire lane is owned by the city and half by us. What we could do would be to demo the amphitheater and level that and put portables along the back side of the gym, perhaps facing in towards the courtyard. And I don't have an estimate of what that would cost yet, but that's an interesting idea.
Or the courtyard itself is not used as much as, it just seems like empty space most of the time. So if we had portables facing the new Gen 7s, right there, and the corridor there, I think it would work. I'm just trying to find
Yeah.
more space for you.
Well, certainly.
I've done this over the last 17 years.
Now, the question will be, how do we divide a very small pot of money?
Correct.
So,
It's because we have so many needs, and, you know, and I really, I've been reading what's going on at the middle school, and I agree. Just trying to find room to meet all the needs, and we're going to have to do it eventually.
I have a clarifying question as well sometime. I'd like to know, if we are allowed to use Measure E funds, how much are we going to be using for this whole project? Not just the buildings, but the planning and whatever else
So,
goes into that Measure
the
E.
report that I've just given you
Yeah,
has all of those expenses in them. That's what you can expect to spend for 10 classrooms.
so if we went with the fourth option, what's it called, well, something,
Growth Point?
Growth Point.
Grosse Point?
For
That
10
would be about-
classrooms, the cost for the 10 classrooms is, I believe, 1.4 million. It gives you
1.67?
1.6, and does give you ability to add, whereas you don't have that ability with any other option. Now, you have, Measure E will have in it $3 million.
Right.
So we haven't gotten our legal opinion on Measure E yet.
I will have it to you by next week.
But,
So if the opinion comes out that we can't spend it on the MacGregor site, that gives us money to spend on, it's still available for the high school site.
It is. Actually, the money will be available to you either way. My recommendation will be that if the ballot measure is so restrictive that we would take it out for
vote.
a vote of the public. In the meantime, I would recommend that you would borrow money from Measure E funds in the interim to do what you need to do so that you have student housing available in the fall.
And if the tax measure fails?
Then you will borrow it from your GASB 45 funds.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that scenario.
you don't
I'm
mean,
a little uncomfortable.
you don't mean tax measure, do you? You mean if the measure that goes out to the public to ask to use the Measure E bond funds in a different way fails?
That's correct.
Right, okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah, no taxes. My final clarifying question, or my one clarifying question was about, you mentioned the different needs, office space, CTE classrooms, all differently sized from these standard portables. How flexible are the options that you presented to us to be used for those different spaces?
So we could look for a larger portable. I only quoted you standard portables, including the Growth Point option.
So those
They're all
have-
available in a
Okay.
larger footprint.
I have questions about the particular options, but I am willing to wait until I
Yeah.
hear public comment, and then
Good.
I have some specific questions about the options
Yeah.
presented.
If
But
there's
I can
anybody
wait.
Yes.
that'd like to talk about this, please come on up and give us your views.
Hi, my name is Joanna Pace. I'm a sixth grade teacher at Albany Middle School. I've worked as a teacher at Albany Middle School since 1983. My first 11 years were as a seventh grade teacher. I taught in the Ocean View site that had been designed by my then colleagues at that site when I came in 1981. I've taught in a classroom in the Ocean View site. I've taught in a portable at the northeast corner of the Ocean View site. I've taught in a portable on the parking lot at the Ocean View site. I've taught in every classroom in the 6th grade wing when for 3 years I was a 6th grade science teacher on a cart. And I've also taught in Lab 109 in the science wing at the current middle school site. We had one sort of halcyon year that first year we moved to a new site when everyone had a room that was the same and equal and beautiful and clean. And then we quickly outgrew that site. So we are here tonight, my colleagues and I and our principal, to tell you that we are packed like sardines at our current site, and we need your attention to our needs and to the miracles that we work daily with that site. And we have basically worked daily since basically the second year we've been on the site. We're the kind of staff that we put our nose to the grindstone. We just work, and we keep our miracles to ourselves. We have squeezed ourselves into that building and do amazing things with very little space. And my colleagues here, a few of them will step up and just elaborate for you on that work that we do in that limited space. Our basic message is we're overcrowded, and we want you to come see for yourself what we do period by period and at lunchtime, and particularly on rainy day lunchtimes. So some of my other colleagues will step up now.
Thank you.
I remember that one year when they cut that one music period, and then my son had to go, and if it was raining, they all had to sit under the rain shelter for that period before class, and they'd all be sitting under that shelter shivering.
I also know about battling upstream to get to the writer's coach classes as well.
It sounds very familiar to the 11 years I spent as a junior high school teacher. It's impossible.
Hello, my name is Lucy Brinza. I'm a 6th grade teacher at Albany Middle School, and I have yet another.
More sardines.
See how good the balance is there. I have a letter from Jennifer Morris, who is another one of our 6th grade teachers who was unable to be here tonight, but she wrote up some of her experiences. To the board members, colleagues, and parents in Albany. In the absence of a photo of my beloved cart from 2009, I thought I would describe it to you. Formerly the holder of AV equipment, the cart stood as high as my chest, probably this high on me, as I was pushing it. I covered it in a makeshift rain fashioned from a shower curtain liner and clear tape. It rolled up for when the weather was good and was held in place with hooks and Velcro when it rained. The notebooks of student writing, the curriculum for the day, the mobile file cabinet that held supplies, backup materials, papers to grade, materials for projects, boom boxes when needed, all hid on rainy days behind the translucent sheet attached to the cart. Its memory lives large in my mind because it was my first teaching job back in the classroom, or in this case, classrooms, after being home with my children for a few years. Formerly, I taught in a school full-time. My classroom addressed the curriculum and needs of the 6th grade students to whom I taught English and history. Over time, it became an incredibly rich environment where students were surrounded by positive messages, sample work, guidelines for curriculum, progress tracking. Too many things to list. My first 2 years at AMS, because of space constraints, I squeezed my visuals between the curriculum of other classrooms where those teachers were kind enough to make space. My first year at AMS, I taught 40%, which meant I taught one group of 7th grade students for 2 periods. Usually these 7th grade classes are cored, so students stayed in one room with the same teacher, even if that teacher often had to move to teach other periods elsewhere. I started the year in mid-October, hired to teach the overflow of students that year. English happened in the art room, surrounded by art projects and the necessary remains that an art class will leave behind. History happened in the 6th grade portable, rich with reminders of 6th grade curriculum on the walls. When English was finished, we packed everything up, moved across the yard to the portable, and finished our day there. We usually lost 5 to 8 minutes of instructional time each day moving, depending on whether it was raining or not. The reason for this schedule, I was told, was that there were not 2 periods next to each other where a class such as mine could be held. There was not even an option to have it in the 7th grade wing, where I could share space with teachers teaching similar subjects. The second year was the same, only with a slight improvement. Instead of moving from the art room to the portable, I started in the computer lab to teach English and walk the students over to the portable. With the physical plant smaller than the needs presented by a large student body, the master's schedule was impacted and couldn't accommodate the needs of such a class. I've left the cart behind in teaching 6th grade and now have a room of my own now that I'm back to teaching full-time. But many teachers still work from a cart, moving multiple times a day and teaching in classrooms that do not support their subject. Despite the best efforts of creative teachers doing what they can in these situations, I do not believe this is the ideal way to provide an excellent education. I ask the board to do a deeper examination of space issues at AMS to be sure the district does all they can to make room for the needs of middle school students too. With respect, Jennifer Morris, teacher, AMS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a facilities master plan that will be, oh, please, someone else come up. But I was just going to say while you're coming up, we have the facilities master plan that will be out on December 19th. We'll be approving it, although I think it'll be available sooner than that. And I think they do address some of these space issues as part of what they heard. So.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Ueda. I'm an 8th grade English and history teacher. I've taught in Berkeley. I've taught at El Cerrito High, and I do have to say that I love teaching at AMS, but it is probably the most crowded school I've ever taught at. It is very, very crowded. I wanted to back up what Lucy Brinza read from Jen Morse. There are 8 teachers who do this cart dance every day on our campus. And I wanted to share something that I have a unique experience with. I have the honor and pleasure of inheriting Bob Presnell's room, but one thing that we experience in that room is a very interesting issue with inadequate insulation. So imagine you talking about your curriculum, working with students on issues like slavery and the Bill of Rights and things that need deep conversation, and then you hear flush, and then you hear all the water is splashing, and then you hear lots of loud singing because middle school students are wonderful and they want to express themselves and they're singing in the bathroom. But you hear everything because the walls are really, really thin, and it's something that not everyone knows, but it was a revelation to some people. They're like, really? That really happens? Oh yes, you can really hear everything. And it is disruptive to the students' instruction time. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you like sardines.
I hope somebody brought some crackers. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nita Fryer, 6th grade teacher at AMS, and I'm talking, I'd like to talk a little bit about lunchtime. And if you come and visit us when it's not raining, it's a great place. We've got lots of people in the library. We've got an offset lunch, so usually kids can get their lunch pretty quickly and not have to wait in line too long. We have lots of volunteers and people in our library. It's a very nice place to be. Our gym is full of noontime sports, and our blacktop has sports on it as well. We've got clubs. But when it's raining, a lot of these places are not available. And like your son shivering in the cold in that shelter, that's where the kids have to eat when it's raining. Or they can grab their lunch and run inside and eat on the floor somewhere. And so I just wanted you, if you're going to come and visit, try to visit us on a rainy day, because that's really when you can see the crowdedness. And I got into a little accident on Wednesday with a student who ran into me because we were both trying to run out of the rain. And I had my first trip to the emergency room. So visit us, please, in the rain. And not a good public speaker, but.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's really odd. Why didn't the middle school have a multi-purpose room?
It was cut.
Because of
It was
budget?
cut. It was cut.
Yes, it was actually planned for, but then we had to pull back.
In fact, that's.
Where would it have gone?
Oh,
How did you
wow.
get that here?
That's one of the cards.
Well, I'm going to speak over here. I just want you to get.
You have to speak over there, Mike, but you have to speak into the mic, otherwise the folks at home can't hear you.
You can do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Michael DeWall. Thank you. I've been teaching at AMS for this is the 21st year. I got my little pin last year. And I started pushing the cart about maybe 4 years ago. I had my own classroom. I had verbs on the wall and the colored chart and the weather. You could talk about the weather. And I had the numbers up above the board. And, it was really a lot of helpful posters. Well, when I started going from room to room, I had to come, put this thing together. And so you just can appreciate, I've got, I call it classroom a la carte. But, I want to be serious about it because it is, you have to really think this thing through, and you have to have a lot of things on the cart. So I have drawers for multiple things, scissors and colored pencils. And, over here I have students' work over here that you might, that when it's late work, so they have a place for putting their late work. Extra books in case students forget them. And I use a lot of music, so I have my guitar and I have my song books to put on the overheads when we use the overheads. I have a file to return, work. I have other drawers for assignments that they might want to make up, and so they need a copy of a handout. Anyway, so that's the cart. But there's something that goes underneath that you don't really notice, and that's the stress. And we go in, and we have to prepare our lesson, and we put things up on the board. I have a lesson here where I used about 20 pictures, okay? To put that up on the board, take roll, get this lesson started, and deal with some of their questions. I mean, the kids have questions about areas. We make mistakes on areas. We have to address those. But if I'm going to be taking this down, getting out of the classroom, going to another one, sometimes going up the elevator, it's very stressful. I forget, I'm not that, I don't remember everything. Miss Brinza, how many times did I take your clicker, the little remote control? Put it on the card, Whiteboard markers. Whiteboard markers. I had a collection of whiteboard markers that wouldn't quit. And, it's funny, but it adds to the stress of teaching. Yes. And we already have, our job is, I've heard that it's the second most stressful job. You're making all these decisions. You're looking at the classroom. Potential problem over here. Hey, calm down. Get your handouts ready. Do a smooth transition from handing in the homework to do the lesson. So, there's a lot of decisions we are making. And I really do think that we need to, you really need to consider this. We need a place to think and plan our lessons. Being cooped up in the sardine of those pod, I never was in one, but I know it's very confined. And I don't have this cart this year. I have a classroom, and I was going to bring pictures, but we didn't get that put together. But I really am, I'm a happy clam. And I come in early. I want to go in there, think, plan, do my Aries work. I am in there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm a happy clam. And I stay until 4:30 and doing some other work and planning and making my classroom clean. I'm happy. And to go back, the idea of going back to this cart is, I'm not happy about that. And it's a lot more stressful. So you really need to look at our needs and consider getting us out of carts if possible, or at least minimizing it. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the most stressful job?
Air traffic.
The air traffic controller.
I would argue that the stressful job is yours. I did it.
A la carte, I agree.
A la carte.
But he's a good teacher.
I just wanted to take a moment to sort of summarize and just pull up a couple more details, just as we're moving forward. One of the things that struck me at the last special board conversation that I was at, and again tonight, that there's just a lot happening right now in terms of money and facilities and all of these different pieces and a lot of different priorities and a lot of different needs, and so I think none of us want to be in competing needs with one another, and I feel like we all in Albany, we kind of see ourselves as one big team. We don't have schools trying to compete with other schools. And so it's a tricky position in terms of balancing what every group needs and how to best meet those needs. And so, I've thought some in terms of the big picture and, ways that working together work. The nice thing about the San Gabriel campus is it is a way that when the high school and us need to share a space like culinary, it's not on our main middle school campus. It's a way that we're able to share space, somewhat successfully. Say it's a little bit trickier with the MacGregor group in terms of just the breaks and the comings and goings and the interactions. I think generally we try to shelter our middle school kids a little bit more, and that is challenging. It sounds like there's a lot of really interesting things happening with high school and flex program, and just watching the MacGregor group this year, and I'm over there on that campus every day. I hope that you all will be considering some possible benefits to how those kids' needs can be met in other ways, and thinking about being closer to the high school campus, but having their own area and them being able to access particular courses at the high school or different personnel at the high school. I just think that there could be a much richer experience than sort of having a experience sort of in this satellite area. So that just one thought. Obviously not my main focus, but I do think about that group and talk with those students every day, just since they're so close in proximity. As far as the middle school goes, as has been illustrated, we are really, really overcrowded. And I think that there's a few different pieces that I just wanted to highlight about that. In terms of the teachers on the carts, and I think, that the teachers who came up and spoke did a nice job of pointing some of the pieces out. There's the stress on the teachers and the moving around, but I really feel like in going into different people's classrooms, there is a huge difference in the educational opportunities that kids have when they go into a classroom where that teacher is that teacher's classroom. That the types of hands-on activities and adventuresome way that the teacher's able to organize a classroom is completely different if a teacher has their own space to be able to set up interesting hands-on activities, stations, different things that are just not feasible when you're traveling from room to room on a cart. And then in addition to that, there's all of that transition time that is just lost. I mean, when you go into a classroom with a teacher, when it's their classroom, often you have the teacher who's greeting the students at the door on their way in, welcome to class, good to see you today, how's this going, do you have that assignment, or did you remember to study? They're having these types of interactions which are not insignificant. For a lot of students, that's what connects them, those little conversations that they have with teachers at the beginning, and the teacher feeling grounded and ready sets that tone and vibe for the whole lesson. When you have a teacher who's racing in on the car, trying to maneuver through the crowd of kids, okay, you guys just wait 1 second while I get this set up for you guys. I'm going to put up the opener so you know what's happening. I just feel like it's a big loss for the students in terms of the experience that they're able to have. The other piece is just the environment in a room. When you go into a room and you're like, wow, this is a French classroom, this is a Spanish classroom, wow, this is about 7th grade, and you see those visuals on the wall, you see the student work. I think for students, that's huge. It sets this tone of what this classroom is about. I remember sitting at back to school night in Mr. Zablakis's and Ms. Kaiser's classroom, and you have all of these interesting things about 7th grade history and different pieces, and then you have French kind of in the middle of it, and it's just this disconnect of, what's going on in here. I remember some of the parents commenting, to me about that they're like, why is there French all over Mr. Zablakis's classroom? Does he speak French? And we, they finally put it together. So I think that there's that piece of it as well as just being available to students, that teachers who have a classroom, students know I can pop in at lunch and find that teacher, I can come after school and find them and get that extra help or turn in that homework I forgot to turn in, and that's also lost when a teacher doesn't have a home. So that's one piece. The other piece that was pointed about our lunch situation, so this I experienced last week my very first time in my new role supervising rainy day lunch and was just completely and totally astounded. And I thought, I just hadn't had that perspective before of, wow, we're responsible for 900 students and we can more or less get 300 of them seated in a dry area at a table to eat lunch. So 600 of them need to do something else. And so they're running through the rain with their lunches and then sitting on the floors throughout the middle school, and it's just not okay. Just have this feeling of this is not what our students should be doing. This is not the message we want them to have. We want them to sit down at a table in a dry place and enjoy their lunch together, and they shouldn't have to be running and finding dry corners on the floors of our school to eat. And so that, to me, feels like a really big priority in terms of we need to find a solution for this, whether it's extending our lunch shelter or something different. There's also, I haven't experienced this yet, but I've been informed that when there's wind and rain, that we lose about half of our lunch shelter area because the rain slants in and those tables are then out of commission as well. So that it's an issue that, this is significant. The other piece that we were asking for in terms of the MacGregor space is a multi-use room. Right now our school doesn't have one. And so anytime we want to have a training, a couple of classes that come together, anything at all, and these things happen pretty frequently, we lose the use of our library, which means two things. One, it means that students in curriculum, and teachers are not able to sign up and bring their classes to use the library, which is huge. And then at lunchtime, it means that those students who really need that quieter space that feels safe to them at lunch are just thrown out with everybody else. And so, we would love to have a multi-use room that could be accessed. Our drama and music programs could do some practicing there. We could use it for trainings. Anytime classes want to come together to collaborate, they would have a space they can use. So that feels like a significant need that would be great to be filled as the San Gabriel campus is, repurposed. And I think just sort of that general, having enough classroom spaces over there where teachers have their own classrooms. It can alleviate some of the overcrowding that happens in our hallways as people are moving from place to place. And then the last point that I want to make about it is just that our master schedule is largely driven by what rooms are available. And that's not the way a master schedule should be written. We should be looking at what are student needs, how can we best meet those student needs? And instead we're looking at, we can't offer that class second period even though we really need that class second period because there's not a space for them. We don't have a single room available that period. And so I think that there's so many different ways that it matters. We had put together as a staff a proposal that we had shared with Superintendent Stevenson and with the architects. Our ideal would be to have 11 different learning spaces, 4 of which we would share with AHS in terms of a computer lab that could be shared, a multi-use room could be shared, culinary could be shared, in a drama classroom. And then we were hoping to have 7 other classroom spaces so that we can get the majority of teachers, almost all, with each of their own classroom spaces. And I know that's a lot to ask for. We know we're asking for a lot. But I really feel like that's what our school needs in order to give the kids the education that they deserve. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'm sure board members have questions, comments at this point. Okay, Pat, would you like to start?
All right, so in looking at the different options, could you go to the growth point
Sure.
option again? So in looking at the various options and considering everyone's needs and comments, I realized that they are the only ones that would allow us later, when we had the money, to put a second story on. So, I looked really seriously at those, but I had a very basic question, and I had asked the superintendent, but I see the architect's not here, so if you can't completely answer it after that, I would wait. My one concern, if you look at the photo, so as I said, I mean, it just seemed logically like a very like a good choice for our particular situation and needs, because as we acquire more money, we could add more space through a second story. But I want to know if that is just if this version is just a possibility, or if you have to have floor-to-ceiling windows, because clearly you would have security and safety concerns and vandalism concerns. So I don't know if maybe that's just one artistic vision, that maybe you could have half.
You can do, the DSA has approved these, and it does call for floor-to-ceiling windows, but they have obscure glass as well. And I have also seen some where they've actually provided some skirting, but you need it for the daylighting.
Okay, so they have frosted?
Yes.
I mean, it just seems like, I'm no architect or anything, but just logically, it
Yes,
just
they
seems
do.
like a
And this is
security
just
issue.
right. And I think I presented to you in a PowerPoint way back, and I'll bring it back to you again next board meeting. There are multiple versions of how this can look in the front.
Okay.
Okay.
So that was my main question, and I would just. Oh, sure.
Are these 960s as well?
They're 960s and 1020s, both approved.
Are they available as doubles?
Yes. And you can open them completely up, so that if you wanted to have a multi-purpose room, that could be done as well. And I believe, I'll send you the PowerPoint that we initially showed you earlier this fall.
Okay, that was my only question, just the point that they're the only option that gives us additional growth for the long term, and that question. Thank you.
I have an aside that, have we ever talked to the city about some way of, I know this is long far-fetched, of creating a safer way to get from the middle school to the MacGregor?
Yes, we have. I asked for the flashing lights, the raised, it's about 18 inches, it's sort of a bump in the road, and it's blue flashing lights, like in Walnut Creek, if you've ever been to Walnut Creek, when someone crosses, there's flashing lights in the road itself. And the city replied that if we wanted to pay for that, they would be more than willing to install it for us, but until they have a traffic study that warrants a crosswalk like that, they were only willing to repaint, and they did repaint this summer.
I mean, I'm even imagining some kind of a bridge, so that
Yeah.
there would be no involvement. And I've seen that in schools as well.
Right.
Might as well imagine for everything.
All right. Are there other comments? Please come on up.
Good evening, Charlie Blanchard. This is probably information you already know, but I'm going to go ahead and repeat it. Marla and many of the middle school staff will probably remember that the original middle school design included a second story over what's now the office area. That would have been 4 classrooms. And it's my understanding that once it was built the way it is now, that no longer was an option. There was a point where we did try to get Brighton Avenue closed. I think we got 2 small signs, each about 1 foot square. But that was a few years ago, and so it's always worth asking. And then the third point I was going to make was that if you're not aware of this, you might want to look into, I am told that when the middle school was built, there was an agreement of some kind. I know they didn't do a formal EIR, they did a neg deck, but nonetheless there were conditions that were adopted by the board at that time, and that included not placing the middle school all the way over adjacent to, it would be Barron's or be whatever Spokane in Albany. And that's why the teacher's parking lot is there. It's not just because of the grade of the site, it was because of the agreement adopted with the neighbors that the school would not be pushed right up against Spokane. And part of that agreement, I think, probably included not putting portables on that parking lot. At one point I had thought, okay, let's move the parking lot across the street and put the portables on what's now the parking lot. But I had a number of neighbors remind me, they were quite certain there was an agreement. You'd have to look at the
Right.
record and see.
We know that there's definitely an agreement for trees, because I hear annually about whether we have enough trees that buffer the parking lot from the adjacent neighbors. But I will look at that.
You know, this is slightly off the topic, so someone can just tell me, we'd have to put it on the agenda or something, but, so the shelter, which I imagine was the economical solution that was come up with when you ran out of money to actually build the multipurpose room. Nobody's thought about whether there's an inexpensive way or a reasonable way to extend it, or?
Right, there actually is. We could tarp it, with a real professional canvas, and that is a possibility. We could extend it slightly where we've currently laid a small garden that used to be the grass that flooded. That could be extended, but that would only give you about seating for another 20 kids. Or you could go into the center and take a good part of that quad and extend it that way. I think it's extendable. I don't have a quote for that, but I think we could look into it with the facilities master plan.
What about removing it and building multi-purpose?
And where would we be?
We could possibly look at that.
Well, I'm not as good as Paul at keeping us on schedule. We're actually running a little behind, but this has been extremely important and valuable, and so I want to thank everybody for coming and speaking tonight. Was there one more person who'd like to speak? Please come up. This is really important stuff.
Especially for coming on the beginning of your
Vacation.
vacation. We appreciate this.
Hi, my name is Lauren Moss, and my daughter is a 7th grader at the Albany Middle School, and I'm also an architect, so I appreciate the presentation. And I came here tonight because I wanted to see what you were proposing, and I realized there's a real need, there's a balance here between the needs of the staff, sounds like both the high school and the Albany Middle School, but I also wanted to just have you all keep in mind, where education's going in the next, several years, several decades, and if we're moving towards project-based learning and flexible learning environments, that we keep that. And I don't know if that's a goal of this board or not, but I think it's important to maintain flexibility in these learning environments for the kids. And I know that portables are going to be more restrictive in what you can do with them. I didn't know you could actually, I'm glad to hear that DSA has an approved system for the cargo, the cargo bays that you were talking about, because I find that more interesting architecturally. But I'm wondering if there's some opportunities to maybe provide some of the needs in portables or some kind of a mix, but also have money possibly available for some kind of multiple facility, like a learning center or something that's a lot larger, that could be used for flexible learning, that could have more of a high technology base, more interesting furniture, just like a sort of a new prototype actually for the whole district. And that could be even mirrored and rolled out at some of the other schools, like I understand Marin School may be rebuilt at one point, that there may be opportunities to have some kind of a prototypical classroom or flexible learning environment. We've done some work down in Milpitas is actually doing some of these right now. Their superintendent has pushed forward these learning centers, which sort of are the size of almost like 3 classrooms. They have flexible ways of opening sliding doors, garage doors. It's really fun for the kids and for the teachers too, I think. And these spaces are not dedicated to specific classrooms. They're, people move through them more on, I think, kind of a block-based schedule. So I just would like to just make sure that whatever decisions are made keep something in mind for, the future and how interesting this could be really architecturally and for a learning environment for the kids. So, thanks.
Thank you. And I would note actually that on the homepage of WLC, the architects who are doing the facilities master plan, is a link to an article about the death of the 960 square foot classroom as they see it, and I think as a lot of people in education are seeing it now, that it's just not suitable to the classroom it's not the classroom of the future. So I know that'll be on their minds as they produce that master plan.
So one final word, if I might, Alan?
I have a little bit of a hearing deficit. I didn't hear build leads mentioned as a possibility of one of these flexible classrooms.
Yes, that was part of the high school CTE. I didn't mention it by name. So just finally, for the audience and to remind the board that the solutions that I am proposing for the San Gabriel site are temporary solutions. We do not have the financial resources, either in state funding, bonding capacity, or otherwise, to build permanent right now. So what we're offering here, what we're talking about, is something to give you some flexibility. The most maximum flexibility would be the container idea. But whatever we're looking at gives you a minimum of 10 to 15 years to amass enough bonding capacity to begin to fulfill the more permanent solutions that you need to fulfill that will be based with the facilities master plan projects.
Could I get clarification? Now, are you saying that, I mean, I am very interested in the container, the growth point units. Are you saying that they are more flexible in part because we can put two together, for example, and have a larger space?
Yes.
What else, or are there additional?
Okay, so the flexibility with the container idea is that you can add second stories.
Oh, right, okay.
You can make them as large or as small a space because of the inner strength, the way they've been strengthened and the way they were designed initially. So you could have a space that is, I don't know, the size of 3 classrooms and not have any walls or partitions in between, and they still structurally sound. The ultimate flexibility, though, is you can move them. So if you ever develop or if you ever want to do something completely different at that site, you can pick them up and move them to any other site. And structurally, they remain intact. They were designed to be moved, and the lifespan is much longer than any other option that I've given you. So you actually have, some flexibility by looking at that option.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. I think we should probably move on now. The next item on the agenda is persons to address the board on matters that are not on the agenda. Thank you, everyone. And so if there's anyone here to speak on something that isn't on the agenda tonight, this is your chance. Seeing no one, we can move to our first review and our only review and discussion item, which is the annual Board of Education reorganization. It's board protocol for since last year, for us to look to say if we'd like to, anything we want about roles that we'd be willing to assume on the board at the annual reorganization, which takes place on December 10th. And we've been doing this rather than a strict rotation through the board each year, simply because, as it says in the handbook, not everybody is equally able or willing to serve in each of the roles, president, vice president, and so on. And so if anyone has anything to say about what they'd be willing to do or happy to do at the reorganization, then Pat, would you like to start?
President Black is not present today, but he asked me to read a statement with regard to the reorganization, so I will do so. He asked me to say that he has enjoyed serving the board and the district as president for the past 2 years. Having worked closely with Jonathan during that time as my vice president, I, referring to Paul, have every confidence that I also feel the same. I have every confidence that he will make an excellent president and fully support him should he be willing to take on that role. I am willing to work in whatever capacity the board wishes for the coming year. So that is Paul's statement that he wished to share, and I would just echo him in saying that I would be willing to work in whatever capacity the board wishes me to for the coming year.
Thank you, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that for this next coming year, I would like to pass on serving as an officer. But I would like to say that the only person on the board who hasn't served as an officer is Member Maris. And since this is the last year of his tenure, at least for this cycle, I'll propose that I'll nominate him for vice president if he's willing.
Alan,
I guess it's up to me next.
what do you think of it?
So I am willing. It isn't nearly as strenuous a position, I think, as being president. And I would like to have some role in the kind of agenda selection process, which I haven't had an opportunity to experience. So I would be willing to serve. I think it's part of my responsibility as well to be willing to do so.
Well, I'll just say that I'd be happy to serve in whatever role the board sees fit to nominate me for or asks me to. So I'm happy to. I appreciate Paul's statement, and
I do
appreciate
too,
you reading it.
and I support him very much.
Thanks.
And just to clarify, this is not the time.
We're not doing it
We're
now.
not actually doing
There are
the
no
nominations
nominations
at this
today.
point. Yeah.
So when are the nominations?
That will be December 10th.
And that's just barely outside what the Ed Code calls for, I think.
I think
It
it's
calls like
within-
mid-December to mid-January.
Yeah,
And that's
it's-
pretty close to mid.
Exactly. It's the time we normally do it. I think last year was
Yeah.
December 4th, if I remember correctly.
We have one board meeting in December. That's when we do the reorganization.
Sure.
Except for this year.
Yeah,
This
except
year.
for this year. All right, thank you. So let's move on to the next item.
Yes, we have our 2014-15 calendar that has been negotiated between ATA and the district. It is a mirror of the 13-14 calendar. So the one area that we'll be looking very closely at are the 3 days at Thanksgiving break. We're going to be looking and monitoring student attendance as well as teacher attendance. ATA and the district both decided we would like to see 2 years of data before we make any real final thoughts on this particular break.
I'm sorry, 3 days?
Yes, we have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Oh, the break, as opposed,
Yes.
I assumed you'd be looking at attendance on the
That's
Monday
what-
and Tuesday.
We're going to be looking at the attendance the entire week.
I see.
As we have in the past.
Okay.
And I suppose it's too soon to say how many people showed up today.
It's too soon.
Yeah.
Has there been any discussion on, the issue that keeps coming up, aligning us more with the university's schedule and AP exams, et cetera?
We have not taken that direction, but it'd be something that we could entertain again.
And occasionally people bring up the question of having finals occur before Christmas break. Maybe that's what you're asking about. Same issue, yeah. So that's
Right.
something in the future, perhaps. Okay.
And I had asked previously, there had, in the past, traditionally been certain minimum days. And we are no longer going to have those except for one. Is that correct?
It is, we have discussed this with ATA. I think we have a difference of opinion of whether it's negotiable or not. Ed Code allows for the district the calendar to be negotiated, but the actual instructional minutes and the days and the time of day, as long as we don't change the total instructional minutes of the calendar, we have purview and can make the decision on minimum days. I am recommending that there will be no minimum days, and we're talking about the ultra minimum days.
Yes, I am as well.
That are taken at the secondary level, and those days have normally been or customarily been the day before Thanksgiving, the day before winter break, the day before spring break, and the last day of school. I am recommending that no ultra minimum days be taken except for at secondary, the last day of school.
I distinctly remember, I asked about that because I distinctly remember a student board member who I really respect saying that he remembers those minimum days being a complete waste of time. And so I'm see some discussion of that.
Thank you.
I have heard the same thing many times. So I'm going to move the AUSD calendar for the 2014.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, that motion carries, and we are on to B, which is to ratify legal services agreement.
Yes, Atkinson, Andelson, Loya, and Rude and Romo is the law firm that Lisa Allred works for. As you know, I interviewed 5 highly recommended attorneys to represent us in any parcel tax challenges, and I determined that Lisa was the most qualified, and I thought of the best fit for Albany, and we needed to take some actions prior to this board meeting, and that is why we need to ratify their contract.
And this is specifically for that purpose?
That is correct.
That purpose only?
That is correct.
So you need a motion.
Unless there are other questions.
Yeah, I had one, but I'm not sure if I
Oh,
need to ask.
I'll wait.
Oh. Just the, on page 47, just the administrative fees. It seems sort of a thing of the past, phone calls and faxes and things like that. It just seems like that doesn't exist anymore. It just drew my eye. That's just a comment. $2 per page for outgoing faxes.
Although their rates are actually less than some of the other firms that we use.
Oh, that's interesting too.
Yeah, their rates look pretty reasonable compared to other attorneys, but
Yes.
pretty high compared to a lot of what us make.
Yeah. Thanks. Do I have a motion on this?
So move that we ratify our agreement with Kelsey, Loya, Rude, and Romo.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion carries. And we have collective bargaining agreement with CSEA.
Yes, this is our final public disclosure for our California School Employees Association, and we are required by Assembly Bill 1200 to disclose publicly the cost to the district and the affordability for the current and subsequent 2 years. And before you is just that, the cost, the general fund cost, child development cost, and cafeteria fund cost, because those employees do work in different funds. Just a note, I did provide a revised copy of general fund. I discovered a tiny glitch. It doesn't change the cost of the agreement. It doesn't change the public disclosure. It was calculating the reserve cost a little incorrectly, so it was off by like 0.6%. So I just wanted to fix that, just so that we have a copy that's 100% correct. So in the third year out for the general fund, we said it would be 5.16, 5.10 is what it will actually be.
Oh, so this is correct, what you just gave us, yeah.
Yes, this
Got
one
it.
is correct, yes. The other 2 funds were correct. They didn't have the same little glitch that I discovered, but this one just had a little glitch in it was pulling from some other sources and some spreadsheets, and it wasn't quite calculating that cost at the bottom correctly.
We appreciate your diligence and your attention to detail. Thank you.
Yes, you are welcome. And so this is our final public disclosure document. We are finished with negotiations for the year.
That's great, and it's been a lot of good work.
I'll move approval of the collective bargaining agreement with CSEA Chapter 679 with thanks to our assistant superintendent.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that carries, and we've approved the final collective bargaining agreement for this year. Next up is approving placing a parcel tax on the 2014 ballot.
Yes, so the board asked that I bring this item back after our special meeting of November 19th. I am making a recommendation that you entertain the idea of placing that parcel tax on one of the following days. The countywide consolidated, which is the least expensive to the district, it is November of 2014. I'm not sure what will be on the June ballot, but that is also a general election. You also have the possibility of entertaining a standalone district election. That is the most expensive option, but it does have some possibilities of favorable outcome. So I would encourage you to, if you would like to consider that is the parcel tax committee that is already forming, that we talk to them about the possibilities as well, and then bring some specific dates, because once you decide on a date, then the timing is super critical in terms of getting the ballot wording correctly, getting it to the county clerk, et cetera, et cetera.
So to clarify your point, you're saying that we should agree on multiple possible?
Not at this point, but I wanted you to start thinking about a future date.
Okay.
So we can approve placement without picking the date yet?
Yes.
Okay. You feel that the standalone might give us a better chance?
I would tell you that a standalone would give you the greatest opportunity of a successful campaign, followed by anything other than the national election. Remembering that a national election brings a large turnout, or a statewide election, brings a very large turnout of individuals that may or may not be familiar with district concerns and any measure on the district, which would be November.
So I had a question for this, as we think about this issue. There have been a number of articles that many have probably seen in the media this past week with healthy, positive tax revenue projections for the state from the legislative, the LAO office, what is it, Legislative Analyst's Office. At the same time, they say there won't be a number given per student, that is, an increase given to school districts until a future date. So I'm asking Assistant Superintendent Harden if you could confirm or clarify this a little bit and tell us what projections the December interim report will be based upon. And I think some of you can infer that I'm asking this because I'm thinking about the amount of education and transparency that we'll have to have in a parcel tax election, and that this larger context of the tax revenue issue will certainly be a part of it. Yeah.
Well, the revenue that will be in the first interim will be based on the local control funding formula, which is a spreadsheet that is distributed statewide, and we input our data, of course, again, based on, enrollment, et cetera, et cetera. Does it generate additional dollars? Yes. Do we know if those dollars are solid? No, because we won't know that until probably after the first of the year, when the January budget comes out. So we're still dealing with a lot of uncertainty with local control funding formula. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought this up, because I just received this email from, there's several people that attend there's a couple northern section and southern section statewide meetings for LCFF. Mm-hmm. And so they usually send out emails after the meetings to sort of update everyone with what's going on. And so here's a statement. Be careful in your approach in informing the public. Go back to 07-08 and look up what cuts were made since then and compare new funds to this difference. A sliver of the sliver has been received with some accountability attached. And then it says, the LCFF challenge to implement quickly left almost all of the law, over 200 cleanup items still left to finalize. So, you're right, and they do address the fact that a lot of people, they talk about the perception of dollars working against us. Passage of Prop 30 and the perception that generated a whole slew of new income. The LCFF and the state keeps saying they have tons of new revenue pouring in and they're doing so well, but they're saying that's true, but they're not sure it's enough to fund LCFF, and they're already saying it's going to be more than 8 years to reach target. So
8 years? 8 years for what?
8 years to reach the target. Initially, they said within 8 years, you'll reach the target. And now they're saying, even with the new revenue, even with Prop 30, it's probably going to be more like 10 to 12 to reach your target. So they're already stretching out how quickly we're going to receive those dollars. So you can see just from this email, all the uncertainties that are still surrounding that local control funding formula. Now, it puts all of the districts in sort of an odd situation with first interim because we're using the best data that we have, and every state, every district in the state is using the same information. It's just we don't know how solid that information really is.
I really appreciate how clear you're trying to be about what is clearly still a very muddied financial picture. So the only thing I would say is, for me, in thinking about the placement of a parcel tax, I think that the polling is going to be very, very important in trying to see how what the community understands or what they perceive about what the state and local financial situation is. And even though I am terribly cheap with the district money, I am drawn to the superintendent's suggestion about, for example, the separate election because of the increase of chances. So I'm just thinking out loud at this point about this issue. Thank you.
So I just see two things, is that, the question of educating the public and educating myself as well is really key, and having enough time to do that. I also see the implication, have questions about the implications of spending up to $156,000 on an election, and how, where and when and how we do that.
And that would have to be built into the general fund operating budget.
And I'm not saying that that is absolutely the way to go. I'm just saying that in terms of probability of passage. I am checking the new city manager, Penelope Leach, to make sure that we still have our agreement that if we put something on in June, they will not. It's also important that we not put anything on when the county is putting on the half-cent sales tax. So we have to really look at what we think is coming down and then make a decision, I think, in the very near future, though, as to when you want to put something on, should you decide to move forward.
So to clarify, the half-cent tax that you're referring to by the county, is that the transportation?
I think
that
that's
would be
the November.
In November.
That's all the governor's election. That's lots of important issues on in November.
Thank you.
Alan?
What's the difference between the standalone all VBM and the standalone city district? VBM is what?
Is vote by mail.
Oh. So it could be just as much standalone, it's just that it would be by mail instead of by ballot box.
Right, so you save money by having a mail-in only because they don't have to open the polls.
So is that, I mean, that seems to me like a pretty good option, but you still have to evaluate what kind of voters you get out of the vote by mail as well. And then if we're going to do a vote, a standalone, selecting the date is pretty critical as well. With the countywide consolidated, you don't have much choice. It's February sometime, or November, sometimes June. And in the past, parcel taxes, it's always been a countywide. Is that correct?
There was a belief by the then current board that they'd like to go up and give it a fair shot at a consolidated election.
And it worked pretty well.
It did.
Yeah, that's a really critical issue, I think. Get a sense of what voters you're going to get at each kind of election, and then I think we've had some lecture by Miriam Walden about selecting your voters and continuing to go after them.
Right.
Make sure they get there. So there's a lot of strategizing we still need to do. I think I would like to hear more about it.
Well, absolutely, but that is the parcel tax committee that will be formed or is forming now. The board, the board's piece in this starts with, do you want to start the process of exploration?
So what we're voting on now, is that not a specific date, we're just,
You're announcing the intention to explore
oh,
placing
okay.
a parcel tax in 2014.
Yeah, I think it's important to get the word out early, yeah.
So we have anything from the audience? Charlie, come on.
Oh, good, we have our parcel tax person.
Hi, Charlie Blanchard. Yeah, let's go for it. The thing that I'm remembering, though, is that I believe we went out for the pool bond measure in a March election,
Yes.
and we actually had to approve the ballot language in early November in order to do that. I'm thinking that that
Too
one...
late.
That
It's
one's-
too late for
that-
March.
I think it's too late for that to go for March. And then I guess my other suggestion would just be to talk to the folks who are kind of gearing up and will be working on this and get input from them as to what they think is feasible and doable. We've done it both ways. I think the 99 parcel tax was in June. The 2009 was in November. And I've forgotten what we did in 2005.
November.
November also. So it can work either way.
Thank you.
Is our parcel tax person going to stand up and tell us what the status is? How did the meeting go at the end of our last board meeting?
It went great. Rebecca
Yeah.
Long, a Marin parent. Yeah, it went really well. There were tons of people here, and we now have 55 people in our parcel tax email list already.
Wow.
And that's, people are still coming in, so there's a tremendous amount of interest in being involved. I think it's a big question. I don't have any particular recommendation. I think there's pros and cons. I know traditionally, in my world of trying to raise transportation taxes, we always try to go with a general election just because turnout tends to be so much higher. So that would be the November election, and then, just getting out those yes voters. But obviously, with other taxes likely to be on the ballot in November, it becomes a little bit more complicated. So, I think we need to give it some thought, but definitely encourage you today to take the vote to move forward in the conversation.
Can I move that we approve placing their parcel tax on the 2014 ballot?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That carries, which brings us to a related item.
Yes, I think it's, my recommendation to you is that we don't have Miriam Walden that's going to run a grassroots campaign. I would, and as part of that grassroots campaign, that was the door-to-door polling that was done.
It's not that you're recommending that we don't have her,
Right.
you're saying we don't have her, so...
We don't have her. And because of that, I am going to recommend that we hire a professional consultant to do the polling. And what I did was I looked at the last time we did a poll, and I took that language, I modified it for today's probable parcel tax exploration. And I'd like you to, normally we don't actually approve RFPs, but I thought it'd be something that you'd like to see and make any comments before approving it.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any comments on the...
What do you think the cost might be? Just curiosity.
I'm thinking 15.
Yeah, I was thinking under 20. Yeah.
One comment I had was that I think it would be important to, in the RFP, to make it clear that we do have a large group of parents who are gearing up to work on this, and that they would need to be consulting with them as well, because I think currently the language says consulting with the district.
And we would add parents.
And so we would add parents.
Or parcel tax committee.
Committee, rather, yeah, because it's not necessarily parents exclusively. So...
Yes, we'll make that change.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
And I even had a suggestion for a sentence. It doesn't...
Great. Could you email it to me?
I can email it to you. I can even read it if I can find it.
Okay, great.
Which I think I will in just a second.
Take your time. We're all scrolling
Yeah,
around, too.
it's a lot of scrolling these days. Oh, I know. It's actually, it is in an email already. But essentially what it says is adding the phrase communicating with a parcel tax committee from the community.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent point, yeah.
Are there, unless we had a comment from the audience, I think, first, yeah.
Thank you. Rebecca Long again, at the risk of not trying to micromanage too much, but I did have a couple of comments from other folks about this that I just wanted to relay. One point was, there's so many just issues to address in a poll, including the question of the structure of the tax itself. And there's been some discussion in the last couple of days about the lawsuit. And, we discussed at the last meeting the idea that it has to now be per parcel tax. Well, there's now been some discussion and some research that's been bandied about the fact that you could actually, potentially, though it seems like it's a little bit more risky legally, do a per square foot tax. So it's not a split roll in that you're taxing commercial differently than residential, but if it's on the basis of square footage uniformly across residential and commercial, you're going to obviously get a lot more money with your bigger footprint parcels, like a Target or what have you. And then that would obviously alleviate the cost on a per parcel basis to generate the same amount of revenue. So it's just a point about, before we go out and put a poll in the field, we want to really explore and get some financial consultation about, what these different options are, and also get some legal advice, because this does seem to be a little bit in that gray area and whether we want to take that risk. So that was the main point, I think. And then, just really appreciate Jonathan's comment about involving parents. We just really like to be able to have a chance to look at the language, before it's finalized, so that we can kind of make sure that all the possibilities that are being talked about in the community are considered in the poll. Thank you.
To follow up on that, I was thinking a bit about people's perceptions about whether there might be more tax revenue monies and so forth, so that it seems like the discussion we've had many times about looking at the lists of cuts and the prioritizations and at least having some, if not prescribed, but having some general guidelines about things that we would like to fund again, and even having a bigger vision that if for some reason we ended up with more, what we would like to fund additionally. I mean, elementary school music or whatever. So I think it's something maybe we need to think about in the polling as well.
Yes.
Or that is the parcel tax committee will be thinking about in the poll.
Other comments? Do I have any?
How quickly will we be able to actually get the RFPs in and hire?
I'd like to publish it on Monday.
Okay, so I'll finish my motion then. Move that we approve the request for a proposal for public opinion and important services.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That carries, and that brings us to the final item under action items, which is to reconfirm the district mission statement and our values and beliefs. Page 76.
Now, normally we do this on the 10th, when you reorganize, but we are so packed with agenda items for the 10th and the 19th, we hope that you wouldn't mind reconfirming this tonight.
Great. So is it, I'm just going to ask if there's anybody with comments or changes on this at this point, or if we're good keeping it as is. I think we've been happy with it for a while. Do I have a motion to approve this?
I will move that we confirm the Albany Unified School District mission statement and values.
Did we ask for
sorry,
comments?
was anything from the audience on the mission statement or the values and belief statement? All right. Thank you, Ellen. Okay, so we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we've moved that on. We are actually scheduled to end at 8:45 tonight. We need a few more minutes, I think, for board and superintendent comments. So if we could just extend until 8:55.
I move
think
to
we're-
extend the meeting until 8:55. Do we need a formal motion?
I don't think you do. Normally, I mean, our meetings go until
Till
9:30.
Well, normally, yeah. But it was on the agenda to end at 8:45, I think. Fine. Okay, good. So now that brings us to board and superintendent comments.
Yes, well, I think that we've discussed the need for the special meeting on the 19th. I'd like to remind the board that we will have Ray and Associates here on the 10th, and we will need an hour and a half with Ray and Associates to begin the discussion of the new superintendent search. Ron Rosenbaum has taken the lead on that. You'll have the consultants here. We're trying to insert them into the middle of the meeting to get as much public exposure as possible. So you'll start at 5, we'll have a closed session, then an open session earlier than to do our regular business, a little bit earlier, knowing that the meeting will be very long, 5 until, is it? 9:30. So we'll try to make sure that you have something to eat. To keep
So
yourself going.
the closed session will be from?
5 to
roughly
6.
5 to 6.
Yes. So we'll have something to eat, preferably in closed session, so you don't have to be eating during televised time. And I know that, Jonathan, you had some, just a brief overview of what we're going to be doing.
Right. Essentially, well, you've touched on it, essentially. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what was coming up in December, because it's an unusually packed agenda, so it's worth thinking about things now to the extent possible. So December 10th, we'll have Ray and Associates after the closed session, hopefully in prime time, about an hour and a half. And they're going to be interested in learning from us the key qualities we're looking for in a new superintendent. And they're also interested in our input on establishing a timeline for hiring the new superintendent. So that process takes about an hour and a half. We'll have the board reorganization. We'll have the first interim budget report. We will have phase 2 seismic reports from OPSC on Marin and Ocean View. And at that time, we will need to make a decision on whether to continue our current fast track plan, which will involve commissioning an architect, and we won't have time to go out for bids. This would continue to be WLC, who has done the facilities master plan, to provide architectural services and provide documents that we can submit to DSA to hopefully get that pot of seismic funding and then that pot of hardship funding, right, as well, that could actually pay for rebuilding and retrofitting the 2 schools, depending on the recommendation. And that the cost of that has been estimated to be around $1.7 million. And so that's something we have to decide on the 10th, or we are shooting ourselves in the feet with regard to actually having it be possible to do it all. So we got to think about that. On the 19th, at the moment, it's scheduled to have the Measure E, legal opinion on Measure E funds and their use. We'll have to also decide what to do at MacGregor based on what we heard this evening. And we'll have the facilities master plan as well to approve that evening. So it's a lot to do.
So the facilities master plan that was due on the 10th, we're going to be seeing on the 19th, is that?
Yes.
At one time it was due on the 10th, is
Yeah,
that
there's
correct?
just too much on the 10th. Yeah. That's why we called the special meeting, the extra meeting.
One concern I'd like to express now about the 1.7 million is that we have that contract structured, phased, so that as we learn what our status is, we can back out of an expensive contract if it's not going in the direction we like. We're going to get a preliminary assessment from OPSD, is that right?
Yes.
At that stage, we will have spent some money with the contract. If they turn us down, we're not stuck for $1.7 million to go on with the fruitless effort. Or are we going to go ahead with the 1.7, end up with a design and try to do something with it?
We'll be discussing that on the 19th, and I think those are important considerations.
Yeah, I just want to get those out so that we do consider that as well. Go ahead.
I thought you wanted to mention something about proposing a resolution.
Yeah, I do. I've got some other items. I was just
some things,
responding to yours.
You know, and the final
Thanks.
thing that I wanted to say is that I know that because we've been putting these special meetings on, and some of them have been short notice, that there's been a lot of concern raised about whether that's the appropriate process for this board. Is it fully transparent? And so I just was going to say that we do have in January the governance handbook as we open it up and take a look at it.
Good.
And then that would be, I think, an appropriate time for specific ideas, if people have them, to make sure that we don't have that kind of problem, because we don't want to be sitting here telling each other we're not transparent enough. I think we all want the transparency, and so to figure out exactly how to make sure we have that, that would be an item we can include in January. And that's all I had. So.
Yeah, we really haven't had that problem very often. When it does come up, it's nice to know how to deal with it. So that's a good idea. I appreciate that. I had some announcements. Am I next?
Go ahead, Alan.
Okay. There is some state legislation sitting in Sacramento, not on a one-year track, but on a two-year track, to come back with the split roll parcel tax for schools. And I would like us to make a resolution or have a vote on a resolution at our next meeting or coming up soon to support that state effort and the legislation that's being sponsored. I think it's AB 48, is that right?
49?
49?
AB 49,
Maybe
Florida.
Yeah.
59.
Whatever.
59, AB 59.
It's an AB that supports our ability to have the split roll tax, so.
So I would second your proposal there to get that on the
Good.
agenda.
So we've got the second,
Sure.
so that'll get on.
Yep.
And I've heard some requests, and I've seen some indication that the staff is ready to give us a status report on the hiring of elementary aides.
Yes, that's due on the 10th.
And that'll be on the 10th?
It's scheduled for the 10th.
Scheduled
Great.
for that.
And let's see. I would again like to get some sense of whether the Build Leads program is coming on for a future agenda to review and approve.
It
is?
It is, but not
But
review
not
and
until
approve.
January?
It's not review and approve, it's a staff report.
So eventually I would like to see it review and approve. We have it in the grant proposal that we received. I thought there was a pretty good proposal for that program. I think that could be modified fairly quickly to become an item for review and approval. Why is it just a staff report?
We brought a grant proposal to you in error. We misinterpreted board policy on gifts, bequests, and grants.
Mm-hmm.
It is not within the purview of the board to vote or to approve a grant that the district writes for state funds.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, we have not had the board approve high school programming. What you do approve are courses that come to you for board approval, but not necessarily small learning communities. That has not been something that has been brought to you in the past. So I'm reluctant to bring the build and lead program to you for that reason. Schools, IIC, school site council, and their leadership to determine how they want to offer courses and paths for their students.
Because the IIC and the site council did come to us, I believe, with a proposal last spring for a Build Leads program.
I know it's been on IOC's agenda.
It came out last year in their final report on what they recommended for the coming school year or whatever it's called. But they worked their way through their process all last year and came up with these recommendations.
So I think you two are actually
Sure.
agreeing.
Yeah, I think we're going to.
Yeah.
So we'll have a report in January.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll be able to fully discuss what you're.
They will be
at the
reviewing
time.
the progress at least every year. As of last year.
The progress of a program?
Of any CTE.
Yes.
And then I just want to remind people again about the Build On is conducting a fundraiser. collecting, recycling, used cell phones, etc. They're also doing a bake sale at Monterey Market tomorrow and on 4th Street, all raising funds for building a school in Nicaragua.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
Ron, do you have anything?
Good.
All right. Okay, well, that concludes our meeting. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.